Welcome to day 8. I believe it's day 8. Day 8 of the Web Technologies course. I'm Jim Kaufman with Rankin Technical College. So today I'm kind of wanting just to go over this chapter 4 homework. So kind of call this like a helper video of the chapter 4. And a lot of the concepts also covered in here that we'll be covering here will help you with other things that you need to do as far as the book exercises. But there's a few things in here that are a little bit different and done a little bit a different way. And I'll go through those. So here, so first you got a basic setup. Create an index.html file, then create a wrapper div to center your page. Use a semantic structure with a header, nav, main, footer, like we've been doing. Also, what's called integrate, which is called a normalized CSS. So let's go ahead and do that. So first here, let's see. So basically, everybody knows how to create a file at this point. So, create an index.html file, use your basic template or whatever. Here's just I'll take a look at this page real quick so you can see what it looks like. So, just some simple little page with some text on it, nothing fancy in that, okay? One thing that you do notice is you see a lot of space on the left and right here, okay? You see a lot of space on the left and right. So we're going to be using, we're going to use that div, that margin, and I'll show you that here. We're going to be using that wrapper. Let's see, that's what that says, right? Let's see, the wrapper div. So we're going to use that. So let's go take a look at that real quick. So to do that, well, here, let me not get too far away. So first, you want to go ahead and create a CSS directory. Inside there, create a styles.css. You can call it something else, that's fine. Okay, and then this is going to be your styles. And the first thing is your basic page setup. This is the wrapper. Whenever you see, I'm doing kind of a little bit of a review from some things I talked about a little bit yesterday. But whenever you see a dot, a period, a dot first, you know this is going to be associated with an ID in the HTML file. Okay, when you don't see anything before something, you know that this is an HTML element, right? This is just one of our HTML elements like header, main, footer that we know of, paragraph, right? Etc. all the way through. And, we're going to look at all these in a little more detail here. Down here, you can see we've got a dot. Whenever you see a dot, you know that this, to reference this style, you've got to be using a class in your HTML file, right? So this will be on a class. If you do that the wrong way, you try to reference this as you put an ID in your HTML and you put this name here, it's not going to work because it needs to, for a ID, it needs to have the hash or the pound sign before it, and for a class, it needs to have a dot. Okay. And I think we go down here at the bottom, and here's a custom paragraph. We're using the hash or the pound. So you know that we're actually using an ID for that, right? And once again, if you end up having if you have in your HTML class equals custom paragraph, it's not going to work, right? Because it's not going to be able to find it, right? The only way it would be able to find it is if this was a dot. All right. Now, why would you do it why would you do one over the other? So for an ID is always a unique ID, right? You use a unique IDs in HTML. And so you're only going to want to do that when you're like only going to have one for the page. Or, some specific thing, and this is the only place I need to apply some styles. It's just this one place. Then you use the ID, which is going to be the hash sign or the pound sign. If you think this is something that's going to be reused multiple times in this page, or maybe even a lot of times in projects you'll work on, there's going to be like you work on a big project. There's going to be somebody that's creating the CSS that's going to be used on multiple pages. So you bring that in, and then you're going to be using that, right? So if there's a style that you think is going to be reused anywhere, then you go ahead and use it as a class, right? And most of the time, it's just some single one. Usually, it's because you're dealing with some specific thing on one single page. What this specific thing needs to be styled this specific way. So, all right. So that's that. So their first one was up here at the top, dot wrapper, right? And actually here, why don't we, this would actually be a good one for, honest, for this page. I would say this would be a good one to be for an ID. So let's just kind of change that real quick here. And we're going to go find our wrapper. We've got a class. All we need to do in this case, we're going to change this to an ID. And now it's going to use that wrapper. Okay. Here, let me just leave it like it is to show you it won't work, just real quick. And let me bring up the page. Maybe I better get rid of a little bit of this. Sometimes it just doesn't, not happy about things. We have multiple servers. I think I was having this problem yesterday. Okay, so what do I have on here? Let's see what I have. I have a class wrapper, and in here, did I not save it? I expect, oh yeah, it's not, yeah, this is correct. So originally, it would had a lot of spacing on both sides of this, right? It was using that 80%. It was so that it would have a lot more margin on the left and the right here. So let's go ahead and go back here and change this to an ID now. And go back, look at our page. And now you can see, okay? So what we do here is this, we're saying we want this to be 80. In this case, we want this to be 80% of our page. Okay, we want this to be 80% of our page. And what this auto is going to do here, okay, this auto is going to make sure that it distributes what's left, the spacing on each side. It's going to say, make it 80% and then distribute it. So it's basically centering it. Okay, and it's saying a margin of 0. So you have a margin of 0, and it's saying go ahead and, distribute the spacing on both sides. Okay, and it's 80%. So obviously you've changed this to another number. And let's just go ahead and put this other one up there too. Get rid of that. And let's do this. So now you can see it's a lot smaller, right? And there's 80%. Okay, so that's how you do a wrapper. And like I said, I went ahead and made that an ID because this is one thing per page here. This wrapper is on the div. So let's go look at the div here on this though too. So the wrapper's on this div. Well, this div is actually underneath the body tag here, right? And if you can collapse it by doing this, so basically that div's taking up this whole page except for the body, right? You got your begin body tag, your end body tag. This div is this whole page. So it is pretty much taking up the whole thing. And this is it'd be different if you were just doing one section, but here you're taking up the whole page. You're probably only going to have one of these for your whole page. So let's just make it an ID instead of a class, right? So that's optional how you want to do that, okay? But just mentioning that. Okay, so that's that. So that was the wrapper. And then we want to do a semantic structure. They're just saying, what's this basically saying is, put a header, a nav, a main, and a footer on your page, okay? And this might have been missing a nav bar. No, yes, it is. No, it's not. Okay. So basically put that. Okay. And then there's this idea of normalizing a page. And let me show you what I kind of mean here. So I already have this linked, right? This is how you link a style sheet. Use this link just like this, right? And then you got to make sure you're pointing to the right structure, your folder, right? So here, the easiest way to always do this, if you know you got your folders of CSS, you start typing C, then it's going to pop up, right? It's kind of helps you. And then it's going to show you what you can choose from there, and that's the one, right? But for right now, I want to comment this out because I want to show you something with this page. So we're going to lose all of our styles here when I do this. And another thing, another little shortcut can help you. So if you want to comment out a line on your page, one of the easiest ways to do it is hold down the control key on your keyboard and do the /, which is, right to the left of the shift key, right where that also the question mark is. So hold down your control key and the /, and it will comment that out. Okay, it'll comment that out. And as you can see on the right hand side, that changed, right? And so our styles are gone. But you kind of notice there's a little bit of a spacing in that here, right? Because the reason for that is the browsers, all the different browsers, and they do it differently, have kind of what's called a basic. Whenever you load an HTML file, they're going to have a base style sheet, a base style sheet that they're going to apply to every page. So if you don't have one, it's going to apply that, right? So what's kind of a really common thing to do, and there's different ways to do this, but one of the better ways, I guess, the more really cleans everything up, because it does put it does go ahead and put spacing in there. It does different basic formatting here. Okay, there's this idea of a reset. Okay, and as you can see in here, I have this integrate the normalized CSS. It normalizes the CSS. So what you can do here is go to this URL. Okay, go to this URL, and it'll be right here. And then you can just right click this and do a save as. Okay. And in this case, I'm saving it to the same directory. You might want to put it download, whatever works for you, but you need to make sure you put it in your folder. Here I've got my chapter 4 part 2 examples, and I got CSS. This is the style sheet that I just commented out, right? So I'm going to go ahead and save this normalize there. All right. Now what I'm going to do here on that is I'm going to go ahead and let me grab, I already had a note for this, make things easier. So I am going to put this normalize right here, okay? And it found it under the CSS folder. It's over there now, right? So I got this normalized. Now let's go ahead and go over here, and actually the way live server sometimes works, well, actually I have mine set to a file autosave, and since I'm autosaving it, it automatically saved as soon as I put it in there. That's why it showed up. Okay, let's just get rid of autosave just for the heck of it now. I just want to show. So it was like that, and once we put that in there, okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and save it, and as you can see, so it went and got rid of all of these default styling, right? And this is a pretty extensive file, okay? You don't have to worry about anything in here, okay? Just for this assignment, just go ahead and do exactly what I did here, okay? Now, I do want to show you a couple things with this also, though. So the reason you want to make sure you do this first is because, so first you're going to go ahead and put it back to default styles, okay? And here, Another thing is if you want to comment something out, we use that control forward slash. You can do the same thing again to get rid of that. Hit just highlight it, hit control forward slash, and it'll get rid of that comment. All right. And then I saved it. And so we're back to our styling. Now see what happens if we put this in the wrong order. Okay. If we put our styles first, then we do our normalize. I'm going to save that now. Okay, that didn't quite work the way I thought it would. Why not? I know I've done this before like this, but it did switch. It did make a little, made a little bit there. You're not seeing a lot because you're not overriding a lot. See how that kind of changed just a little bit. Oh, well, that was the wrong one. Let's see what we got here. Yeah. So if I did that, and if I get rid of that, it does make a little bit of change there. So really just wanted to make sure, yeah, in this specific instance, it's not a lot, but you always just want to really make sure that you go ahead and put your normalize first before you do your styles. Okay, so let's see, that takes care of that. So we've got all the basic setup pretty much done here. Then we got this external style sheet, which we already created this external style. I already had this created. So let's kind of go through that. So here's your semantic structure, and you've got, you're saying, I want to go ahead and set the padding on a header, main, and footer. Okay. I'm going to go through a few different things on this, and I want to show you some things on this. Now, kind of back to developer tools. So here you're saying, remember that 1.2, when you do this EM, that's relative, all right? Down here, this is an absolute, that's pixels, okay? But by default, the browser already has a default font size, okay? A default size, okay? And a way to do this, and I can share this with you, and this is actually more kind of like JavaScript here, but it's one way to find that out. And don't worry about this if this confuses you. This is just kind of for more background information here. So if I go open here and I go hit F12, and I'm going to go to console here, okay, and I'm gonna cut and paste something in there. I'll send you this, and it will tell you the default size of the font for your browser. Okay, this is the default. It's 16 pixels. Okay, so this is the default size. So that kind of helps with understanding some things, and I'll show you why that matters here in a little bit. Okay. So here, when you say padding 1.2 EM, right, it's basically taking, so when you do EM, it's going to be relative to the default. So the default's 16, right? So let's go ahead and just pull up a calculator to make things easier for us. And let's say 16 is our default times 1.2 equals 19.2. Okay, so basically the padding here is going to be 19.2 pixels. Okay, in this scenario. Okay, and that's why, because like this browser is going to have that pixels. You could be on a phone; it's going to be different than on in a browser window. So there's, there's going to be some differences. That's why when you use the relative measure, like the EM, it's going to be relative to whatever that default size is, right? We didn't set a default size in our file saying we want this to be 16 pixels. This 16, not that you can do that. You can do that though. You can actually put a global one to set that for what you want. But we're just using whatever here. We got the default in the browser. The default in the browser, 16 pixels. And we're saying this font size down here is 1.2 over here. So it's going to be 19.2, right? So let's just go see it, not that you necessarily have to know all this for your thing. It's just, it'll be helpful for you to understand, okay? Now, sometimes it's actually hard to get to some of these things. Sometimes it's hard to get to some of these things. So you just kind of have to play around to get there. This is the developer tools. I hit F12 to bring it up. It'll be under computed. Okay, so you can look around. And it all depends, like I said, I kind of mentioned this yesterday, kind of depends on what you did last. It kind of remembers what you were and kind of comes back to the same place. So, and you don't have to be an expert in this, and don't worry about it if this is confusing for you. It's just a tool that you can use. And as you progress, it'll be a very powerful tool for you. Okay, so the first thing we wanted to do was what? So we want to see what elements had that padding on, right? So the padding was on the header, the main, the footer. Here's our header, right? So if I right click on here and just do inspect, all right? So I'm wondering why. So that one, you got your see here, you got your margin, 19.92. Maybe it's this. Yeah, let me see this. Inspect that. It's got 21. It's a little different than I was actually expecting here for some reason. I'm not sure why. Yeah, there we go. I don't know. So yeah, if I right click, probably where I did it. If I right clicked up here and did inspect, so there's our 19.2, right? That was the number that came up in our calculator. That's our padding, right? That's our padding. And this is the, we were talking about the, everything in HTML is basically a box. Everything on here is a box. And it's kind of really helpful because you can see your padding by highlighting that. You see your padding over there. It can be very helpful. In this case, we don't have a border, right? Here's the margin, here's the border, here's the padding. Margin 0, border 0, padding. And here's your content, right? Showing you all of that. And as time goes on, this will be very helpful for you. Okay. Let's see here. What did I want to mention next? Okay. I guess we're good there. So that's how this relative measure kind of works. Okay. And so we have that, and we're putting this on our paragraphs. So all of our paragraphs have this font size of 1.2 EMs. So any place you've got a P tag, this is going to be your font size, which would be the 19.2. This is 19.2. All right. Which was also here. We were using that for the padding, doing the same for the font size. Obviously, you just change this. We want to make this just, so if we make this 1.0 here, and I save that, you can see it's smaller now, right? You can see it's smaller. All right. So we'll put this back to where it was. All right, and then, so, yep, that was, this is just talking about semantic structure. You're making all three of these, padding there. Relative is going to be your EM. Absolute is pixels. So here's the heading 1, which is right here. It's going to be 32 pixels, right? So another way, so let's say 16 and plus 16. What's 16 plus 16? Right, that's 32, right? So we could actually change this to 2.0 O EM, right? And it would be the same size. Well, we got to get rid of that. Same size. If I made this 1 EM, now we're down to 16. So 32 would be the same as 2 EMs. Okay. Let's see what's next here. So that was relative measure, EM, absolute measure. So you can do either one, pixels or points. You can kind of do what I did there. All right, let's see, a hex or RGB color value. Let's see what we got here. So this is an example of a hex color when you're using, whenever you've got a pound. So don't get confused. You know, we've got the hash here of FFF. Don't get that confused with the whole thing with the IDs, right? Something separate, right? Completely separate concept. And this is a shorthand code. So 3Fs is the same. And the reason you can do that is if the next 3 are the same as the first 3, then you can just do a shortcut. Okay, you can do a shortcut. If the first, in some cases, that hex is going to be the same and so if it's the same, then you can just do that, and that's kind of a shortcut there. Let's go ahead and go look at a couple different things here. Let's look at, oh, well, we have another hex here, background color, text decoration, right? So here for that, so we have these different lengths here. Now before, for the things we've done, we've seen they were underlined, right? But here these are not underlined. That's because text decoration is none. So let's just go take a look at that. You know, a really good tool for this will be using W3 Schools or you can use Mozilla. So we want to look at the CSS text decoration. So here you got different options here. We had none, right? None is an option too. It doesn't have that here for some reason, but it's okay. I bet it does somewhere in here. Love those ads popping up all over the place. Underline. So let's go ahead and try that, right? We do that one. And now they're underlined, right? Let's see here. Okay, I want to kind of back up just a little bit. Because I do want to, we'll just wait till we get, we're going to get there eventually. I apologize. Okay, so here, well, this is hex or RGB. Let's see what else was on here to do. Hex or RGB color, so it doesn't matter. Descendant selector, okay? So we have different kinds of selectors. And a selector is basically what we define here in our, let me fix this up. What we define here, you know, so these, right, are element selectors. These are HTML elements, right? Then we have our ID selector, right? We have an ID selector, which we know we're going to start with a hash, right? The hash. And then for the class select, for a class one, we're going to start with a dot. Now there's also other ones as well. Okay, and so here's a descendant selector. Okay, so here it's basically saying, let's go to nav, ul, li, and a. Right? It's not going to put this text declaration on here or here or here. It's going to put it on this a. Right? So it's just basically drilling down. Okay, this descendant selector is drilling down. If even if you have like if you have other A tags, other anchor tags on your page, if they're not part of this, it won't do it. Right? It won't do this. Okay. It's gonna go ahead and it's going to drill down. It's gonna first find nav, then it's gonna find the UL, then the LI, and then the A. Okay. And so we can go look at our code. Pretty basic here. So, sorry. So here's our nav, here's our UL, here's our LI, and here's our A. Right? Okay. So that's a descendant selector. Multiple selectors. So here you're just saying I want all H1, H2, and H3 to be text aligned center on our page. So they're aligned center on their page and not left or right, right? Text align left. They all moved over a little bit. You can't see a lot because of not a lot of room. Yep, moved all over, right? Okay, pretty basic there. So that's multiple selector, child selector. So a child selector is, in this case, what you're doing is looking for, here you're looking for all, you're looking for trail info. So you see a dot here, so you know that we're looking in our HTML, we're going to be looking for a class, right? Looking for a class, and then we're going to say for all H3, for H3 of this, right? Go ahead and put a border bottom on here. So let's go look at that in here. So what were we looking for? Trails. It might not be in here. We might have to fix that here. Let's see. So trail info. Oh, here it is. H3. Local trails. I don't remember seeing that here. Local trails. Border bottom. Oh, I see it there. It's really hard to see. It's really hard to see. 2 pixels. Let's make this like 5 pixels. Still hard to see. It's just because this is the same color as the other. So here we can do all F's, right? Or we'll do there we go. Helps. It was kind of hidden because of colors. So this is basically saying go to the trail info, go to the child element, a child element of this, and go ahead and do the border bottom on there. Okay. All right. So that's border bottom, or that's the child selector. Paddings and margins. We looked at that. So our main has a padding and a margin. What else should we do here on this? Let me see here. So I went ahead and did a 1 EM on the margin of this footer. We're just going to take a look and see what that looks like. And I'm looking for something that, yeah, let me use this. And let's go ahead and put a border on here as well, just so you can see this. So let's see what this looks like over here. So you can see it's putting borders around everything, all right? 1 EM is going to be 16 pixels, right? We know that, right? From what we learned before. So that's going to be putting black solids on that. Now, like we kind of looked at before, may not, you don't necessarily need to know this, but, we could kind of come here and do our inspect, or you could do the F12 key to open up developer tools. And as you can see, there's our margin, which was 1 EM, which is 16. There's our border, which is 16, and our padding was 1.2, right? So that's how that kind of all works. And it highlights this over here too. This will be very helpful for you when you start really putting multiple things on the page and next to each other, so you can see where everything's kind of lining up. Because it can be very confusing, especially because, you might not always, margins and borders by default, margins and padding, I should say. Margin and paddings, you can't visually see those, right? You're not going to visually see a padding, or that's just spacing, right? You don't know if, what's what really, unless you kind of really dig in. Obviously, a border is obvious. It's going to, a border, but the margin and the padding, you never know. But this kind of really helps with that. You need to highlight that and look at that, right? So, okay. Let's see what else here. Pseudo class selector, hover and focus. I don't have any of those. Let's just go. So you get to this and you don't know what to do. We go and we can kind of go look it up, right? So let's just go in here and look it up. Put in there, hit enter. It'll probably come back with some hover. Might have to do CSS. There it is. Pseudo class CSS. Okay. Yeah, you have to get used to which one to click. But so here you got a.hover, background color yellow, font size 18. Let's just go ahead and grab that. That'd be a good one to grab. And you can always try it yourself right here, right? You can see when you're hovering over it, right there, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and drop that in here. So we want to do this one for, we could just kind of add that. Yeah, let's just add that down here. So this should work for all of them. So this is going to say any A's on the whole page, where the descendant selector was only if you have other A tags, other anchor tags on the page, it's going to do this for all of them. Here, it's only going to be what's part of the nav, right? All right. So let's go take a look at that. Get rid of that, and there you go. All right. Then what else we have? Oh, focus. Okay, let's go look at focus. Let's go do the same thing we did here. Let's go search for focus. Probably might be actually good to put CSS in here. Focus can be used for different things, and that might actually make it easier. Okay. So here is, we can do the same thing here on this. Let's take a look at our code, see what we want to do here on this. Yeah, why don't we just change this to focus? I don't know if I've done that on a tag like that. Let's just see what that looks like. All right. I close that page? I must have. Okay. I hope I save this. Save this. Let's open this in Live Server. And so this is, you're thinking this is hover, but it's really more than that. Because if you You know how you can tab through a page? See how I'm tabbing through this? The tab is the focus, okay? So if I just put that back way it was before, you know, this all depends on what you want. Focus is different than hover. Hover's obviously you're hovering over something, right? Hovering over it, it's doing that, right? Focus is, you know, I'm tabbing through this, hitting the tab key. And there's some circumstances that you may want to do that, okay? Let's just put that back just so we can see that disappear again. Because then there was hover, and that was just that, right? But if we did the tab here, nope, only for focus would that work, okay? Where focus sometimes comes in, you know, very helpful. When you might change something on a field and then you want to show focus in another field or something. There's some benefits to do that. Also, you know, we'll learn this when we start doing forms and stuff. When you bring up a form, right? Form where you got different things, you entering different data on a screen. As soon as you come into that form, you really want your cursor to be in that first one, and that's focused, right? So you'll be seeing that here in the future. We'll be doing something with that. But all right, so that's that. So we did our selector, shorthand font property. Let's look at the shorthand font property. Hopefully I put that in one of these. Let's see here. Yeah. So there's different things that are available for font. You can do font size, font weight, just like this margin top. You can do margin for everything, right? But you know, there's also margin top and margin bottom, right? Margin left, margin right. For font, there's font family, there's font weight, there's all kinds of different fonts. And this is just this is a shorthand font property where you can say, you know, styling here. You just have to follow it. And actually, if you hover over there, it'll kind of show you. First one's font style. In our case, it's italic. Font variant. I'm not sure why, but okay. Font weight is bold. Font size. There's different ways. I'm probably confusing things a little bit. It all depends on how you set things up, but you know, basically the first one was the font style, and then this is font weight, and then this is font size, and this is font family. And whenever you do a font family, if you, I kind of mentioned this yesterday. First, it's going to go ahead and look for the first one to see if it's available to use. Like I said, some certain computers, you know, your phone, what fonts are available, it's very dependent on the operating system. And so what's available like on an Android device or an iOS device and what's available on a Windows machine. And, you know, there's other devices with other operating systems as well. And so sometimes not all font families are there. Sans serif is usually always available. So usually that's like your default, okay? You can have up to, I believe, 3, or is it 4? But, you know, the last one's always your default one. You know, first use this one. If not, use, you know, the second one. Whatever the last one is in the list is the default one. And you want to make sure that that's one that's kind of used on all devices, right? So, all right. That's that. Let's see if we can find. Let me see if if I look for that at W3 Schools. Let's see what we can find on that. Let's get rid of these other ones. Okay. So if I go, let's see if it finds up. There you go. Shorthand property. So here's an example. Arial, sans serif, yep. Italic, bold, kind of same things we were doing, okay? So really it's how many you have. If you only use 3, it's going to be, if you're only using 3, it's going to be the style and then family. Well, here you're only really using 2, even though you got a second one. But just play with this, and you know, I admit I'm not an expert in this area, but so here, yeah, it kind of figures things out for you a little bit, okay? But you just play with it. Here's the options. All right. So gradient backgrounds. So if we look at our page here, let's close that one. It might be hard for you to tell. I think you probably should be able to tell. I don't know what's going to happen when I put this out on YouTube. But over here, it's a lot brighter. And as you go over to the right, it's darker over on the right-hand side, right? So that's the gradient there. Let's go ahead and that's another one. We should probably go out there and just go look at that. There's different options there. Use background image, even though this is really like not an image in the traditional sense, it's still considered an image. Okay, so let's get rid of this one and go look for this here. We'll go grab one that's a little more exciting out here. Yeah, no, let's just go ahead and do this. So here's the gradient backgrounds. So whenever whenever you struggle with something or really want to learn something, come out here and read some of this stuff. Not everything's necessarily in your book. So this is red and yellow, left, but okay, this doesn't include left to right. Let's see. If you want left to right, to right, that's how you do to right. So as you're going to the right-hand side, it's going to go from red to yellow, right? It's going to kind of change. So let's just drop that in there and take a look at that. Now the original one was using the hex. This is just using the colors. Not every color has a name color. Some doesn't have name colors. Sometimes you just want to change your, especially when you're using the hexadecimals and the other options. Sometimes you want it to be a little bit different. They're not all web safe colors, but there are, you have a lot more options if you're using the hexadecimals or the RGB, which red, green, blue. You have a lot more options here. For name colors, it's just really a basic set of colors for the most part. It has grown over time. And also do want to mention, I know I mentioned this before, remember color is always font color, right? Okay, sorry, I kind of regressed there a little bit. All right, so we're going to look at the header now. Let's go take another look at that. We save that. And there you go. It goes from red to the yellow, right? So there you go. So that's how that works. Let's see what else we have in here. We did the shorthand. Gradient, custom heights and widths for paragraphs. Yeah, let's take a look at that. I think I did, I missed this. We're going to go over that here in a second. Cascading CSS, how it cascades. Kind of looked at that a little bit yesterday, but we're going to look at that again. So yeah, let's look at custom heights and that. As far as the validation, you should be fine on that by the time you get to this exercise. This homework assignment, you're going to validate your HTML and validate your CSS. Make sure you take screenshots of those. You can use Windows snipping tool or whatever you use. But make sure you take a screenshot and put that in your code and so submit that to GitHub. But okay, let's go and look at the custom heights and widths, and then we're going to look at the um, cascade demonstration. Okay, so height and width here. I think I have something in here already. I know I do. Okay, so we got this custom paragraph. We got a width and a height on that. So let's go and take a look at that. And where are we here? Okay, so our custom paragraph. Where's our custom paragraph? Custom paragraph has an ID. So we know we gotta, whenever you got an ID in our CSS, you need to have that hash. All right, so there's a custom paragraph there. And this is hiking is my favorite. I'm not really a hiker, honestly. This is just something I have. So let's see. So why I love hiking. Okay. So looks pretty similar to the other one, but you notice these are a little closer together. This, this essential gear and favorite trails, a little closer together. A little more spacing here. All right. So let's go ahead and just play with that a little bit here, so we can really see that. So let's go ahead and change our custom paragraph here. Make the width 100%, and we're going to make our height, say 200. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now you can see we made the height much more. You have much more height. Extended this all the way, 100% of the available space. Sometimes when it's 100%, it's always 100% within where, it has, within its own kind of area. Because, this is already within here, right? It can't go beyond here because it's only it's going to be 100% of the available space, so to speak, okay? So there's 100. And then if we change this, let's just, take a look and then change it down to 50, and you'll have a lot less. Yep. It's only the paragraph here. So you have a lot less. Okay. The next thing I'm going to show is the cascading. So for our body here, we have some different things, some different stylings from our body. So within here, we've got our body tag. We have a font family, Arial, right? Starting with Arial. So we got this font family. So this is defined in this cascading style sheet, right? So this, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. So let's just say that this is going to be, you're going to call this in. You're calling this in, you're referencing this here, right? So obviously the normalize is going to go first. After that, it's going to apply this to the whole page, right? It's going to apply this to the whole page, right? After that, it's going to go look and say, do I have any? So at this point in time, when this gets called in, before this ever gets executed, right? It's going to have this font family after that gets called in. Once you get to this point, so that was external, this is embedded. So now the font family is going to be this, right? Then when you get here, this is an inline style, and your inline style is going to be this. So the first one comes in here and does this, then it's going to do this, and then it's going to do that. Not that you'd really ever want to do this, but it's just kind of a demonstration to understand what takes precedence over the other. Because you can, since you've got this defined here, you can change the body, the body in this all day long, and it's never going to change. It's never going to change. You can change the font family all you want in here. It's never going to change because takes precedence over this one. Same thing with here. You change this all day long. If you've got this, it's going to take precedence, right? Obviously now, if you get rid of this one, right, then this one's it's going to default to this one. If this isn't here, it's going to use what's in here. So let's just kind of take a quick look at that. Let's see if I can set this up so that we can see it while I move it. Yeah, let's just get a lot of room here. There we go. So our bodies pretty much are all of our text here. And so we have this Times New Roman. So like I said, when you load it, it's going to first load the external, then it's going to load the embedded, then it's going to load the inline. So let's get rid of the inline. So you're going to have to demonstrate this. You don't have to use the body tag if you want to use other tags, but you're going to have to come up with some example on, and just leave all three of them in there where it's showing, where you've got a external and you've got an embedded and you have a inline for at least one of your elements. Okay, so here, that's why I kind of got rid of the automatic file saving. Autosave is a great feature to have, but for demonstration purposes, it helps when I can just hit Control S so we can look over here, because this is Times Roman, and so it's going to look different here since we changed that. See how that changed? Now now it's Arial. If we get rid of that, one, and I save it. Maybe it's not using when let's see here. Oh, that's the same one as this one, pretty much, right, isn't it? Yeah, too close. So, yeah, let's just come up with another one here. Let's come up with another one here. So, let's do this. Let's do this one. All right. And then what do you have in here? We had this. And then if I get rid of this one, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to hit save, and you're going to see how it's going to change over here on the left-hand side. Okay? I know it didn't change that much, but yeah, it's a different font family. So just kind of demonstrate how that works, obviously. So first you're going to load your external style sheet. And also keep in mind, and this is a mistake students have made in the past, on especially the normalize. You always want to have the normalize first. You're going to normalize it, then you're going to go ahead and add, and then so you're normalizing. So normalizing is just actually getting rid of the browser defaults. Okay, it's getting rid of the browser default styles. So you're getting rid of the browser defaults, then you're adding your own. From the external website, your external sheet, and then from there, if you want to have an embedded style, and from there, if you wanted to have a inline style. Now, best practices, they actually suggest not even using inline styles. There's really not a big reason to do that. In most cases, you probably could just have it embed, maybe you're reading in the style sheets. That's a style sheet that's used at a company, and it's used on all 250 pages of this website. And then, but then you can go ahead and embed some at the top of your HTML file, make some style changes, but not do inline. It's just really best practices, and even actually even embed it as well. Because what you could do is, let's just say you had a styles comment or whatever. You could have your own another one underneath here that's specific to maybe your page, right? You could have a page level. We've done that before and on projects where we'd have a common type style sheet that's used the whole website wide. Then we'd have individual style sheets for certain pages because they were kind of different, right? And so then you could actually just have another style sheet right underneath here. And the one under here is going to override what, maybe this has a whole bunch of stuff in here. Maybe we just want to override a few different things. You have a separate style sheet, page level, and then you would just call it in the same way as here. Maybe over here you'd have a CSS and you'd have another folder called page, and then inside that you had some certain page, right? Level one that you would just call in, and that's going to override just the small little ones you want to override, okay? Because one always overrides the other, right? So that's a good reason for that. And the reason kind of to do that and really try to keep everything in style sheets and not have a bunch of styling in your thing, it's back to that concept of separation of concerns. So that you're not the HTML is about structure and layout. So when you start adding styling, right, adding styling stuff scattered about in here, it kind of causes some problems with the idea of separation. you know and then so if somebody who created might be a CSS expert and they would work on CSS, and somebody else is taking care of the HTML and things, and so it's kind of a good way to do that. Separate those things out for different reasons, right? So I guess that's about all I have. Let's take another quick look at this assignment. I think we got additional styling concepts. I don't know what that means. That's these 4. I just only have 3 things over here. I think I moved one of these up here. I think I know what I did. I'm going to update. I'm not going to make any significant changes here, but I might just make this a little more understandable and add some references and stuff like that in here as well. I won't make many changes, but I think what I did, I think I moved these normalize up here at the top 5 points, 5, 10, 15. I moved the normalize. It had it way down here. It made sense to kind of do that early on, so that's why that's like that. But I think we pretty much covered everything here. And if there's some things you don't understand, like I said, go out to W3 Schools, search for it. Make sure you're choosing the CSS stuff, because sometimes it's referencing other programming languages or JavaScript or whatever. So that kind of helps out there. So that's all I have for today. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks a lot.